Hello, everyone. My name is Corey Norton. I'm part of the sales leadership team here at Orgo Software. On behalf of the entire Orgo team, I'd like to say thank you for joining us for our sixth webinar of the year, where we'll be discussing infrastructure security and how to protect your agencies from cyber attacks. For those of you who have joined us before, welcome back. You'll notice a little bit of a different format today and a shorter webinar to give you a little bit more time back in your afternoons. And for those of you who haven't joined us before, we're happy to have you. For a little bit of context, Orgo is a global software company that provides a secure cloud-based end-to-end solution for capital planning and construction management. As always, this webinar will be recorded and sent to everyone who registered, and I encourage you to submit your questions to the Q&A box in the webinar platform so that we can address them at the end of the presentation. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get things kicked off. Today, we're excited to be joined by David Wooldridge. David's an accomplished CIO with over 25 years of experience in the civil engineering and government industries. David recently retired from the Nevada Department of Transportation, having served as the CIO from 2012 to 2022, and joined Orgo as a key member of the industry specialist team. David also held several technology and engineering roles with the Nevada Division of Water Resources, as well as serving 10 years in the United States Army as a construction surveyor and signal platoon leader for the Nevada Army National Guard. So David, excited to have you here. Thank you for joining us. And as always, we are also joined by our senior marketing manager here at Orgo, Stephanie Pedroza. We'll pass things over to get us kicked off. Stephanie, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Corey. And a warm welcome to all the members of the audience from my end. And today's topic of discussion, we're going to address the critical concerns shared by public agencies all around the U.S. and Canada. And we can all recognize that public agencies are prime targets for a wide range of cyber threats due to the significant amount of sensitive data that they possess. That is why infrastructure cybersecurity is on everyone's mind, and there's an increased awareness and focus on strengthening our nation's cyber defenses to enhance resiliency against any uncertainties that may arise. And today we're going to explore the latest trends surrounding cyber attacks, cybersecurity landscape, any aspects of incident response planning, and really discover strategies for maintaining resilience in our nation's infrastructure security. So let's dive in. And as you can see, there is the cybersecurity landscape threat. And here are probably some of the most popular cyber threats that agencies are seeing. We have phishing, ransomware, malware, and right now the most popular one that I think that everyone's talking about is supply chain attacks, which are just attacks on the weaker links in an organization's supply chain. And David, I'm going to open the discussion. Out of the threats that you've seen above, which one would you say has the most impact on public agencies?
I think phishing does still. I think phishing is the primary way that people get ransomware, malware into an environment. And I think even in the supply chain area where, if the supply chain's impacted, it's probably been impacted through somebody infiltrating their network through a phishing, ransomware, malware. When you brought up supply chain, I thought it was kind of interesting. I never really had thought about it that much. When you think supply chain, I'm thinking just hardware. And then, I did a little reading and research on it. And you start looking at software impacts too, and other things like vendors availability and things. So if your vendors aren't available to come and do work for you, or you can't get just basic supplies, and then software, we've seen incidents of software being infected with malware that you're purchasing and employing in your environment. Now you have malware in your environment. So supply chain is pretty interesting. I think it's something that needs to be watched, but phishing definitely, it's still a strong leader, I think, in that area.
Yeah, and I would say I don't think there's anyone on this call who hasn't received a phishing email in the organization at some point in their career. I know we get them all the time. I hear from other agencies that they get them all the time as well. But we'll move on with trends. And above there's some of the trends that we have seen with government agencies, and public agencies still continue to be a huge target due to the lack of available talent, resources, secure networks. Also, they have antiquated systems that they're still using. And out of the trends that we're seeing above, David, are there any other trends that you've seen affecting public agencies?
No, I just think the attacks are going to continue to get more sophisticated. When there's things out there like ransomware and malware toolkits. Malware as a service, so anybody can go sign up malware as a service and start probing your network for vulnerabilities, looking for things that aren't patched, trying to hack passwords, phishing campaigns, and all that stuff. It's a commodity now that you can go out and buy. So anybody can start trying to attack your network. So I think you just have to stay alert and stay on your toes.
And with staying alert, and I guess we're going to discuss this earlier, so we're just going to move on. But another thing that's really popular that's trending all over the world is AI. We're using AI just to improve, to help just make our jobs a lot easier, but we're also using it for cybersecurity. I know we're using it for safety. I was reading a LinkedIn post that Harvard is going to have their first AI professor teaching next semester. So what are your thoughts about government agencies leveraging AI for their cybersecurity?
Yeah, I think machine learning, AI, to me, they are almost, it's hard to distinguish between the two. I think there's a lot of value in really monitoring what's normal on your network, what normal traffic looks like, what the norms are, and then using machine learning or AI to look for anomalies. So, these things, this is normal. We're seeing something weird. Let's investigate that. And you can do that using machine learning and AI. One thing I would caution with AI is AI takes a lot of data. And you need to know where that data is going to reside, who has access to that data. Make sure you have some good contracts in place that are going to protect your agency and your privacy. Make sure you know who they're sharing that data with. Is it just getting all dumped into Chat GTP and now anybody can look and see that your CEO is looking for a new job? You want to keep that stuff private as much as you can, and look at data retention policies too. How long are you keeping that data? Just some words of caution, I think, with AI. It's a lot of valuable data you don't want leaving your control.
Mm-hmm. And I think I was reading that AI, it's kind of like a double sword. It's very beneficial, but a lot of cyber criminals are using it to hack into government agencies.
Right. Yeah. So just be careful with where it goes, who has access to it. Make sure you just have some good contracts in place that protect you and your organization.
Yeah. And then back to what I was saying with the adequate systems and just how to maintain our infrastructure security. Here are a couple of statistics. And in the US, we saw that the Biden administration is actually allocating over $1 billion just to maintain our infrastructure security, just to strengthen our nation's efforts. And David, in your opinion, what strategies and technologies can organizations use to enhance the resilience of their cyber infrastructures?
I think you really need to do the basics well. Don't let people run around on the network with admin rights just because it's easier. Even your administrators. Continually train your team to look for signs of phishing or any type of malware or just any anomalies that's not normal, and have them escalate that to the appropriate people within the organization so you can address it if there really is an issue. Don't punish people for pointing things out like that. Reward them for pointing things out. Make sure you're patching. Do the really basic stuff. Make sure you're patching and just because you have Patch Tuesday doesn't mean the patches were actually applied. So verify that the patches are getting done and applied to all the machines. I think you need to think like a bad guy and just continually scan your infrastructure. That's what they're doing. They're continually scanning, looking for vulnerabilities. You need to do the same thing. Scan for easily guessed passwords. Make sure before you deploy any equipment out in the field that you take the time and harden that equipment and change the default passwords. All those things you can Google them. Once you figure out what that device is, you can look at what the default password is. So make sure you're changing those things. And I think one of the really important tools that's out there right now is the Security Information and Event Management System, or SIMS, where they aggregate and sort all of your log files. Because when you do notice a breach, chances are it's probably been in your environment for weeks, maybe months. So you need to be able to go back through those log files and see what exactly happened, where it moved through your network, what systems it potentially impacted. And you need to monitor those things. Just because you have them and they're sending out these email alerts, somebody has to be monitoring those and taking a proactive look at everything. Don't just install it and hope that it's going to catch something, because if people aren't looking at it, you're going to miss things. So
yeah. And you said something where I actually read a lot of agencies are constantly getting attacked, and when they realize that they get attacked, they've been attacked months and weeks way before they actually realize that they're getting attacked. And I was reading a lot, there's a lot of zero trust security operations. Obviously, now that we're getting more enhanced, cyber criminals are definitely getting a lot smaller. How would you define zero trust security, and how would you adopt and trust zero trust operations?
Hey, zero trust, I think in a nutshell is it's exactly that. You never trust anything. You always verify it. You assume that traffic is a data breach or some kind of a breach. Somebody's infiltrated your network. So in the past, the old kind of paradigm was that you assumed that everything behind the corporate firewall was safe, and you just don't assume that anymore with that zero trust type of mentality. So you always assume breach. You'll verify that each request, where it's originating from, make sure that it has that you authenticate them, and that you make sure that they have the sorry, I'm tripping up on this stuff. They're authorized to view that resource, and that's machine to machine even. So you have to make sure every time a web server accesses a database server, they're authenticated to it, but are they still authorized to get data from that? So every step of the way, from people accessing resources to machines accessing resources, you don't trust any of that traffic. You have to verify it every step of the way, and you can take it another step further, and you can change who has access to what based upon where they're connecting from and how they're connecting. So there's I think there's a lot of opportunities with zero trust to stop things in their tracks, but it's another one of those systems that takes a little bit of work and stuff to get set up and configured and working right, and it can be pretty disruptive.
Yeah. And now with zero trust, obviously a lot of agencies rely on their partnerships with other agencies just to run their programs, but also to run their cyber networks. What should an agency look for in a partner when it comes to cybersecurity?
I think somebody who is like-minded, is takes cybersecurity seriously. It is your lifeblood. If you get hacked, think about stores and other businesses of that have been hacked. Are you comfortable doing business with them anymore? When actually probably after a hack is the best time to do business with them, because they're gonna take the steps to make sure that doesn't happen again. But I think you really want to make sure that you're staying on top of it. Have regular meetings with your vendors. Make sure they're looking at trends that are going on the security side. They can brief you on the things that they're seeing. Just have those conversations and have get with some peer groups and talk within your state or your other agencies that you're working with, or other business partners, and just have those conversations. We're all in this together, and the more we can educate each other and be prepared, the better off we're going to be.
And I think that's what it comes down. It's education, and also, like you said, constant communication with your partners. And another thing, not only having reliable partners, but also that will kind of lead us in having an incident response plan. And I think you and I were talking before we actually got on here that a lot of agencies don't have an incident response plan. So with incident response plan, what would you say makes an effective cyber incident response plan?
Just have one. That's what we kind of talked about before, is make sure you have one. Plan for the unexpected. You really don't know what the incident's going to be. I'd seen things, fortunately, knock on wood, I didn't have too many, I didn't make the newspapers while I was the CIO, but we did have incidents. We had what people thought was copper theft, but they're stealing fiber, which is taking out some of our network. And how do you respond to that? How do you get those locations back online? We had power outages and things like that impacted portions of our network. So storms, the just things you don't always think about. It's not always just hacking and malware and things like that, but at least do some tabletop exercises, sit down and talk with your peers. You don't have to do a full blown recovery, but at least walk through it, talk through it. That saying that you've never really flown an airplane until you've landed it. The same with the cyber incident. You've never really responded to one until you've responded to one. So, and you don't know what you're going to get thrown at you. So just be prepared for every different scenario that you think could come at you. And it's actually a fun exercise to sit down with the team and talk through what sorts of things might we face and how would we recover from them.
Exactly. Now, what are some challenges that you've seen with organizations that they face when developing and implementing an incident response plan?
I think keeping them updated is a challenge. Anytime that your environment changes, anytime a new system is put in, is a good time to relook at that, make sure that it's still relevant, still current. You just gotta practice it, and every time you go through it, you're gonna find gaps. Especially you bring new people in, and it's like, well, what about this? Or we have this new system. Is it important to bring up? And kind of having that. I can't remember what we used to call it. But basically, it was a prioritization of what systems and applications have to come up first. To get back to doing business. Your business continuity plan. So what's important to the business? I mean, is email the most important thing? Do you have to get that up first? Phone system, or is it your ERP? Whatever it is, you just know which ones you have to do. Focus on those, get those back online, and just so that's just part of that plan.
And we're getting close to the end of our webinar. I'm seeing some questions come in. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box. We'll have about 10 to 5 minutes at the end of the presentation to answer those questions. And now, with the challenges that come with a cyber incident response, David, how can these challenges be addressed?
Training, education, good business partners. I know a lot of there's a lot of industry partners out there that that's their expertise, their area of expertise. So maybe enter into some contracts with some of these vendors that are available to help you respond to cyber incidents. It's just that it's hard to say. It's going to really depend on what you get hit with and the degree, the impact in your organization.
So just have one, but let's hope that you never get hit, because at this point, like you said, we never know what we're going to get hit.
You're going to get hit. I mean, you're going to get hit by something. Everybody does. And just be prepared for it. Don't panic. Just follow your plan. Bring the people in that need to be in. Call your vendors if you need to, and just work through what your incident response plan is, and get back online as quickly as you can. Test your backups. Make sure that you're aggregating all your logs. Make sure you're monitoring your entire network so you know where this thing came in, when it came in, what it impacted. So it's there's a lot of good tools out there to help you do this stuff.
And with tools, I guess, how can organizations collaborate with external stakeholders or industry partners to enhance the resiliency of their cyber infrastructure or cybersecurity infrastructure?
Well, I think one thing that's lacking from the organization's perspective, and this might not answer your question, but you need to bring your cybersecurity people in early before you enter into any business agreements with vendors. Make sure you thoroughly vet their security protocols, how they mesh with your environment. And I know it's tough sometimes when you have an RFP out and then it's time to select a vendor. How do you ensure that vendor is going to fit and work within your environment and be secure and fit within your model? So I'd say make cybersecurity part of your design from the beginning. Bring your cybersecurity people in prior to entering into contracts and agreements with vendors, and make sure that those vendors are, they're there to support you. It's a business partnership. I mean, their success is, our success is their success, and vice versa. So let's be successful together, work together, and make sure that we are secure and our businesses continue to operate and be profitable.
And that was really a quick webinar, but we have about 10 minutes left for audience questions, and we might even run this a little short, but I know there's a lot of questions coming in, so I'll hand it over to Corey.
Yeah, thanks, Stephanie. So I'm going to go a little bit out of order here because it was, this first question kind of has something to do with the vendors and the relationships that, David, you mentioned, and you guys were just talking about. But earlier you said, find a partner that takes cybersecurity seriously, and as seriously as you do. For me, when you said that, some of the things that come to mind are, FedRAMP and StateRAMP, having been through that process here at Orgo. But what are some of the things that you look for that would be some green flags in that area for you as when you're looking for a partner, looking for a vendor?
Yeah, I mean, the FedRAMP and NIST compliance, as far as security goes, are important. Sometimes they're very expensive for vendors to get, and depending on the size of the vendor, it may not be practical for them to get that. So I think just having conversations about how they're monitoring their network, the tools that they're using and how their response, and do they have business continuity plans and things like that to continue to support you. And especially as we move more to the cloud, I mean, our Nevada DOT, most everything is in the cloud now, so you're really reliant on vendors and how are they going to respond to incidents. So make sure that they have good business continuity models and plans and good incident response plans. You don't have to necessarily look at them, but just have that relationship and know that, hey, these guys have a plan for when, what to do when and if something happens. And it's hard to pin down an answer to every possible scenario that could come up. So it's just, I think just having that open communications and knowing that they're a good business partner and that they have a plan, and maybe asking you, have you ever been breached, and how did you respond to it?
And I guess
absolutely.
if I can jump in, because you had mentioned that sometimes agencies won't get FedRAMP awareness because it's expensive. Are there grants available or money available that agencies can actually apply so that they can obtain those certifications?
I don't know too many agencies that actually work towards FedRAMP. That's typically the vendor side of things. So like your larger vendors will typically pursue that FedRAMP because they want to get into those federal contracts, and a lot of times the states don't have a state ramp necessarily, so they'll look at the FedRAMP and look, and if somebody is FedRAMP certified, that's kind of a big green flag. But there's some other NIST and other types of certifications that are good, green flag type things to look for with agency or with your vendors.
Fantastic. And we talked a little bit earlier about four main types of attacks: phishing, ransomware, malware, the supply chain. Obviously, this topic is one of the most rapidly changing areas out there. Every day it seems like there's a new kind of attack, and with AI becoming so much more prominent, are there any other trends that you're seeing that agencies and the people on this webinar should start doing a little research into or keeping an eye out for?
No, I think it's just, stick with the basics, and it's just going to get more prevalent, and I think they're going to get better. I saw one yesterday that was bouncing around within the state of Nevada that when you look at it, you thought this has to be an insider job. That they had to have been monitoring emails to know that this email is something that they could send and people would click on. And it was well done, and it was an actual breach. Somebody's email account got compromised, and there's some issues going on with the payroll system, and they leveraged that to get people to click on stuff. And whether that was AI or somebody just had a compromised account and somebody had been monitoring that email for a period of time to know that, hey, I've got something now that I know is click worthy. So, it's just going to, and even Origo, I mean, we do some pretty good fish training, and SMS smishing, I've been smished a few times since working here. And one of them, I was trying to leave Fort Myers because there was a hurricane, and I'm getting text from the CEO of Origo saying, hey, I need you to buy gift cards for me. And I'm like, I'm trying to get out of Dodge right now. So just, but having that awareness and people realizing, what to look for, and it's going to get harder and harder and harder to detect those things. So, there were some red flags in that one yesterday. It was a payroll email that came from an IT guy, and IT guys don't usually send payroll stuff. So, but that level of scrutiny is going to be required on almost anything where it's asking you to click on a link or open a document. And that's how the door gets kicked in.
I think you brought up a really good point there with the smishing. It's not just going to be your work devices. It's something that comes in on your personal devices as well, and something you got to be careful with there as well.
Yeah, and there's a lot of bleed over to your private life. So I think being vigilant all the time at work really pays off in the private sector. And the tool we used at NDOT, I've had a lot of people ask if their mom could get access to it because she had $500 stolen from her checking account from a phishing attack, and she just didn't know what she should do or shouldn't do. So it pays off even on your private life, and I think that's important to keep in mind. Is you want to protect your company resources, but also your own resources.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that about covers it as far as the questions from the audience. So I'll go ahead and.
Well, thanks everyone for joining us. This was a very quick 30-minute webinar, but I definitely think it was a lot of great information. And a key takeaway is if you don't have an incident response plan, start one as soon as possible. And really start with the basics. But I think, David, we can agree basics, but also train your staff, because a lot of it will begin with the staff. And if your staff opens the wrong link or just doesn't pay attention, then that's where it's going to lead into something that we obviously don't want to be led into.
Yeah, I think the human footprint is still that's the largest attack surface right now is the people behind the keyboards. So get everybody educated and thinking like this is a bad email. Everything gets zero trust for your email.
Mm-hmm.
Think of it that way. So.
Awesome. All right. Well, everyone, thank you so much. And we look forward to our next webinar. And I just wanted to let you know our next webinar will be around right-of-way best practices in August. So if you're interested, send us an email and we will be sending out emails for the next webinar invitation. But other than that, have a great rest of the day, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.